reflect on um, a collaboration with a composer that maybe was surprising and changed your perspective in some way? Can you think of something that really kind of came out of the blue and had some real meaning in a way you didn't expect?
Huh. Well, I think working with Pauline Oliveros was like that because I never improvised and never knew how to improvise and didn't grow up. I only read the notes on the page. And she was so supportive and encouraging to everyone that she worked with of like just give it a try and try this and what about this and why don't you just do it for 3 minutes and I'll sit here and listen and then like yes this worked and this didn't and so that was really important to me. I mean, working with her, and then I did commission other scores which were more open. And for instance, there was a festival in Redwood Park in Oakland, Art in Nature, that this composer Laura Intera put together. And so Pauline wrote a piece about the redwood forest and listening to the sounds of the redwoods, and then playing them back on the piano. And um, but I also always encourage like younger musicians, like students that I work with at the conservatory or anyone. I say, go out and listen to a lot of your peers and listen to what's out there and start getting to know these composers. And, there often is something surprising that you hear. And so, one example for me was going to a concert, a new music concert in San Francisco, and it was all sort of okay. And then there was a piece by Danny Clay, and I was just blown away. And I thought, here's a really extraordinary voice, And that night I wrote an email to Danny Clay and I said, could I commission you? And that was one example where he was like, well, maybe, five, like a couple hundred, like he was at the beginning of his career, um, and I had to talk him up rather than down. but I mean, it's yeah. So it's just fascinating, and it's fascinating to get to know, to work with. I always want to work directly with composers, and I mean, that's challenging now. Like Regina Harris Bayaki, we just worked together over Zoom, which works, and that was a premiere yesterday with the Ross McKee Foundation piano break.
Um,
And
I'm kind of curious. Here we are on the Amateur Music Network, and I'm an amateur musician, and but I'm really curious about what you're doing and how you could think about taking on some of that as an amateur, not as a professional.
oh, interesting. I love that the root of the word amateur is love. I mean,
Yeah.
love what you do. And I have to also say, just about amateur musicians, that some of my favorite performances have been at places like the Berkeley Piano Club, where it's women who are amateur musicians and just give like fantastic performances of something that is touches you so much more deeply than some touring pianist.
So funny. Hearing you talk today has really got me thinking about untangling the performance idea, the performance from the composition side of things, because I just love both things, but they're sort of tangled up for me as an amateur. And I think about, what you could do, and some of the things I really want to work on here is that sense of place and thinking about, you know, how might you get collaborations or commissions relating to place would be so interesting. And you really just got my brain going in a million different directions that way.
Good. Well, it sounds like you have people there that you enjoy working with and collaborating with. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are definitely great people here. I think the challenge I always have is it's very much people who are much lower, in terms of experience and sort of skill level. So
Yeah.
I'm always trying to think of ways. That's actually why I found out about Lolly's organization is I drive down to San Francisco and do things every so often just to have somebody to play with. Or I go back to Oberlin and do their Baroque Institute or something. I mean, I have to travel to try to find people to play with. So I think it'd be, I mean, I'm just thinking about different ways as an amateur, but trying to really promote amateur music here, because I think that's really the most accessible thing for most people. But doing something like a commission for amateur musicians would be so cool. I mean, it'd be fun to find somebody to do that. And
Yeah.
you're really getting me thinking about the idea of having to really do that research and listen and learn who's out there that you could collaborate and work with on something like that.
Yeah.
And also, just I don't know if that's at all helpful, but my world is the choral world, and Chorus America has introduced me to an awful lot of people. They do a commissioning project every year, and various composers jump in to do work. And I'm speaking of you, Marty, because they write things for kids. They write things for amateurs. They write things that are not that are accessible technically, hopefully really wonderful and challenging in other ways, but that's a source that you might consider using, and you're welcome to, I won't talk further, but you're welcome to ask me and I can introduce you to a Chorus America person. It is singing, but there are a lot of really great composers that get that concept that you're talking about.
Oh, that's great.
Grace,
Great.
did you have something? Well, I love ending on a note of celebration of the amateur, and and of course, our goal is to restore the love of the love of music to the central position in what we all do, regardless of whether we're amateurs or professionals in our music lives. So.